Hello, everyone, and welcome back. More drama, another day, more drama in the comic book community. This time, CGC is suing somebody. Mother Goose, you're back. How you doing?
Honestly, as soon as you texted me this story, like 20 images of it, I thought, oh God, Sticky Goose has been sued.
So you thought the legal action was against Sticky Goose?
Yeah, that's the first thing I looked at was who's the defendant.
Thankfully, it's not Sticky Goose, but in fact, a former CGC employee and his wife, who was also a former CGC employee, are being sued by CGC. Now, I can't take credit for finding this scoop. I want to shout out a certain individual, the 9.9 Newsstand. This guy's got an Instagram. Sometimes he's on YouTube channels. This guy hooked your boy up with this scoop, as well as Dave from Open by Chance. Thank you, Dave, for telling me about this. Now, where this information came from specifically was a Twitter account named Paul Lesko. Do you know who Paul Lesko is?
A plaintiff's lawyer.
He's a plaintiff's lawyer. I just didn't know if he ran in your circles.
Not in Florida, no.
Okay. If you didn't know, we talked about this on the show, but we have our own legal representation right here. Are you familiar with this kind of stuff?
Civil actions? Sure. I've seen them once or twice. Been involved.
So I text Mother Goose and I tell her about this, and I say, can you look through these documents? The next thing you know, she's calling me, and she's pulling this out. She's got the 40-page
civil complaint, plus all of the other motions that they attached to it as well.
Plus the 12-page affidavit signed by Mr. Patel.
Harshan Patel, and I think her name
Vice
was
President of CGC.
Yeah, and Chloe George.
I don't know.
I haven't read it all. It's a lot. They just filed this January 31st, which is yesterday.
So this is breaking.
It's breaking.
This is not even like...
The defendants might not even know about this yet.
That's what's so crazy. We've had some stuff come across this desk fast, but never this fast.
Never.
No. This is wild. Let's cut right to the chase. Let's talk about this. Let's give a little summary about what the hell's going on here exactly. So if you want to look this stuff up for yourself, you can use a site or a program. It's called Pacer. So you use Pacer as an attorney weekly, daily?
Often.
Yes,
often.
And for a fee for a non-lawyer, legal person?
Essentially, based on what I believe, lawyers particularly, but I'm pretty sure public has record to all Pacer documents. You just have to pay for them like lawyers do. But it's all public record. So you can look this up yourself. It's on Pacer. And I think we can provide the civil action number. So, you can look it up for yourself, not just rely on what we say, but you can look it up and see what you think about what's going on.
Yeah, if there was ever a situation where we have actual facts, like legal documents, this is that video.
Well, technically, these aren't facts. These are allegations.
That's an important point.
Yes.
But the fact is that we have an actual...
we have allegations.
And we have a legal document that is allegations.
Yeah.
All right, so let's cut right to the chase. Here's a complaint.
Okay.
This is by CGC, Certified Collectibles Group, versus the defendants Brandon Terrazas and Ayana Terrazas. I don't know if I'm saying that right. All right, so the nature of the action. I'm going to read this really quick. This is a civil action brought against two employees who abused their roles and privileges at CGC, including converting customers' property, selling collectible materials in violation of CGC policies, and printing CGC labels bearing CGC's name and trademarks in order to improperly label lower-grade collectible products as higher-grade collectible products, with the goal of deceiving innocent members of the public in exchange for ill-gotten profits.
Tis.
So what does that mean? What's the basis of that in layman's terms?
Fraud.
So basically the gist of this was we have employees of CGC that were having books graded or manipulating labels and selling these things to the unsuspecting public with their manipulation, using CGC's good name, using their reputation, and profiting from it. What's even worse is it appears as if they stole books from customers that were submitting the books as well. So I mean, if you've never submitted a CGC, they take the book and then they basically put a barcode on it, an order number, and that's what separates your name from that order. This guy apparently just took the barcode off of the books and just took the books home.
I just don't understand how they got away with this.
Well, they didn't.
Well, they got away with it for long enough. I wonder when this all started.
So Brandon Terrazas, an employee at CGC since 2022, engaged in a fraudulent scheme with his wife, Ayanna Terrazas, to strip CGC of the goodwill by stealing customers' comic books from CGC facilities, generating duplicates of legitimate, authenticated CGC grade labels belonging to highly valuable comic books, encapsulating less valuable lower grade comic books with these higher value duplicate labels, offering such mislabeled goods to the public at large. Thus, in certain circumstances, consumers searching for or purchasing a CGC graded comic book believed they were receiving a legitimately graded comic book by CGC, when in reality they were receiving a lower graded comic book with a duplicate higher graded CGC label taken from another higher grade book. I mean, this is crazy. Now, this person was a new employee. So we're talking 2022 that this guy got on board. So I don't know what exactly his role was at CGC. I mean, I assume he was some sort of grader or somebody. He was in contact with the books.
And labels.
And the labels. So, I mean, he had to be part of grading or quality control or quality assurance. Like, I mean, he was intimately in there in the grading room. So a huge part of this document also explains what CGC is, why CGC is what it is, why it's the standard or the largest, most successful grading company in America. It talks about the grading of the cards, grading of trading cards, grading of comics, obviously, and all the other things that they do grade video games, basically legitimizing why they have their standing, their faith, their goodwill in the community, and why this is such a huge factor. The next huge part of the issue was how exactly they did what they did. So what actions did they take to do what they did? So it seemed like that this Brandon Terrazas and his wife were doing two different things. So it seemed like the wife was in a different aspect of CGC. She was going to the conventions and she was authenticating cards on eBay. And then he seemed to be the one, like the boots on the ground. And it even says right here, he provided services to CGC as a comic book grader.
So he was the CGC guy and she was the eBay girl.
Well, I think she was also working at CGC, and she was going to conventions, and her job was authenticating eBay cards, trading cards. So it didn't seem like she was in the comics. But she also, and we'll get to it later, she has an eBay account as well as he has an eBay account where they were both selling things. So she would this be considered like an accomplice or just as guilty? Or
just as guilty for sure. Based on what I understand, definitely just as guilty.
In his capacity as a comic book grader, Mr. Terrazas was personally exposed to and handled high-value comic books submitted for grading by CGC customers. Defendant Ayanna Terrazas also started at CGC in or around June of 2022, where her duties included receiving items from eBay, verifying the content of such items, and then passing them to a certifier for grading and authentication. So that explains that. As a condition of employment, with the exception of 4 permissible sales transactions per year, the employee transactions, in quotations, CGC prohibits employees from commercially dealing in collectibles, including but not limited to selling or reselling CGC graded comic books online or elsewhere in the marketplace. Blah, blah, blah. So there's these set of rules that you can sell and trade and move your collectibles, but you have to follow their guidelines.
Well, it makes sense. When you're an employee of CGC, you would honestly assume that there's going to be limitations when you work there, that you're allowed to be dealing in comic books and selling comic books, knowing that you may or may not have been involved in the grading process.
So in addition, this is kind of crazy too. In addition, there's a benefit of employment of CGC where you can get 20 of their own collectibles per year, the employee submissions at no charge.
So that kind of contradicts what they just said, because to me, they're allowed to submit books for authentication, but they just can't sell them.
Yeah, so I mean, it's from the perspective that you're assuming that this person is a
lover of comic books,
right.
Never to sell.
Yeah, never to sell. But to me, it's just wild that you're getting 20 free submissions. So if you make an average of between vintage and modern, that's like $30. 30 times 20, that's $600 of a little bit of a perk and a little bit of bonus. But the bigger question is how do we know that person's books are being truly separated from them? Now, it later talks about this. Pursuant to the CGC rules, CGC employees are not permitted to use other employees' employee transaction or employee submissions, whether by donation, sale, or any other type of exchange. As an additional condition of the employee submission process is that employees may not be involved in any aspect of the employee submission process for collectibles they have submitted. CGC takes steps to ensure employees comply with this condition. So they're addressing that
they're not allowed to be involved.
Yeah, they can't be involved.
How strict are you thinking they're watching these things?
I don't know. I mean, obviously not too strict, and they trusted this person. They trusted this person enough from 2022. He was in there. Now, we don't know what kind of training these individuals go through. We don't know what kind of credentials does it take to become a grader? What type of collectibles is this guy holding? Well, it's pretty obvious. This guy was holding, he was handling
his own books.
Major key issue comics like Hulk #1, which we'll get to later, high value books. All right, so now we know date wise. So as far as this in relation to all the drama and the speculation of the 350 books that have been come up into question because of this one eBay seller, this seems like a completely other incident, which CGC was obviously privy to this. Like they've known about this for months and months, but the other stuff, I'm thinking that the community really kind of exposed this other fraudulent situation, the big CGC scam, to them. This seems like this is a different incident.
You really think so?
I don't think they're tied together. They may be. This may be one big scheme, but this seems like a different thing.
Well, you would think naturally it would be the same sort of transaction, that they've uncovered and done all this investigation, put people on notice that there's something fraudulent going on, and then it's followed with a litigation. So to me, I would believe that it would be the same connected incident, but we're not quite sure just because the serial numbers and what's mentioned in the complaint just haven't been connected quite yet.
Yeah, we should have looked and seen if those numbers matched up with any on the list, which, you guys are free to go check that out after looking at these images of the books we'll show here in just a minute. But this seems like a different incident. So this is the timetable. In or around September 2023, CGC initiated an investigation of defendants' illegal activities, conducting interviews with defendants and several other employees at CGC. Initially, Mr. Terrazas was not forthcoming about the scale and complexity of his fraudulent scheme. He resisted providing truthful answers to the investigators, often changing his story about the number and locations of CGC comic books he stole from CGC facilities. Ultimately, however, over the span of several days in October, Mr. Terrazas admitted piece by piece to his illegal conduct. Specifically, to date, he has admitted to stealing 23 customer-submitted comic books. As part of the scheme, he would take customer-submitted comic books from a shelf at CGC facilities, place them on his desk, and discard the books CGC graded wrapping and barcodes. Mr. Terrazas would then submit for grading each of the stolen comic books, then publicly advertise, consign, or sell the comic books on eBay at trade shows. And this is the funniest thing about everything. In total, Mr. Terrazas received at least $26,000 and change in aggregate revenue from these fraudulent transactions.
What would you do for $26,000? Apparently, he's committing multiple counts of fraud.
I mean, with these type of charges, I mean, you're talking in Florida specific. I mean, you're talking about prison time, right?
Big time.
Like, what kind of prison time? 10 years?
At least.
15? 25?
I don't know.
What would you speculate?
That's pure speculation. I can't speculate to that.
Okay. Oh, this is not legal. Was it? This is not legal advice.
Well, we're just assuming. I mean, murder's 25, so to me.
With respect to 7 of the 23 stolen comic books, unsatisfied with the grade actually received, Mr. Terrazas swapped in duplicates of CGC branded labels with higher grades, thereby misrepresenting lower grade collectible products as higher grade collectible products. He admitted to consigning 5 comic books encapsulated with CGC graded to Comic Link under his wife's name. And here's some examples of the books specifically. So we have a Hulk number 1 and a 4.5. That's a extremely valuable book. And then we've got First John Stewart. I can never remember the issue number of this. I think it's like 80 or something. In a 9.0. And then we have First Spider-Gwen, Edge of Spider-Verse 2 in a 9.8. So how was he selling these books? Where was he selling these books? Well, I mean, there's like a paper trail to this. So not only did he like admit to them, so I mean, he cracked. From the way that this was written, it was like they brought him in multiple times and then eventually he just broke down.
Well, I'm guessing that investigator was really persuasive or had some sort of police power because he laid it on him and said, you better admit to this now, otherwise...
And
you're going down.
And then some of the other information that we saw, it seemed like other CGC employees kind of ratted him out, or
rightfully so.
They gave information to the higher ups that this was going on, which kind of gives me comfort that there's at least, I mean, there's some good eggs down there that it's like, hey, maybe, we tell the higher ups this is going on. I mean, this kind of gives me a little bit comfort that it's like, hey, they're actually trying to like stop this and make this right and sue this guy and
hold
not
him accountable.
Yeah, and not just sweep this under the rug.
Right. The
eBay page that he was selling under is this Terrazas the Collector, 929 feedback, 100% positive feedback. At least he's 100% positive feedback.
And he used his own name.
That's not real smart. That's not real smart. Like, you got to use a different name.
I mean, if you're going to try to do some type of crap like this and try to get away with fraud, I mean, at least be smart about it.
At least Ayanna Terrazas, according to this, the document says her eBay account is Omni_collector, and it remains active on eBay right now. It says, indeed, despite CGC's policy against selling collectibles, Ayanna Terrazas offered and continues to offer CGC graded comic books for sale on eBay under the account Omni_collector. Mr. Terrazas, in line 66, he says, he continues to ask employees for their free employee submissions in clear violation of CGC rules. This guy won't stop, can't stop.
How delusional is he?
I don't know. This guy's
He thinks
wild.
he can get away with this.
This guy thinks he's getting away with murder.
He probably didn't think that CGC would actually sue him. He probably thought he'd just get fired and then keep doing it.
This misrepresentation of the grade, this is damaging to CGC's goodwill and reputation, obviously. and its substantial and irreparable injury of the public CGC and CGC marks and the substantial goodwill represented hereby. So, I mean, this lawsuit is, I mean, this goodwill, this entity of, respect in the community, respect in the marketplace. I mean, this is damage that can't be undone.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's CGC, who's a well-known grading company of comic books, and you have 2 employees who are engaging in this type of fraud. I mean, it's going to do damage to the reputation for sure.
So the other interesting thing, and you kind of brought this up, if you get this out here, this is the a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction, and this is signed by Mr. Patel, Hishram Patel. I can never remember his first. Harshan Patel. His signature is on this affidavit, which is right here. And basically, if you read the affidavit and not the other document. Right. What's this the larger document called?
So it's a motion for a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction.
So that's what the affidavit is.
Yeah, the affidavits are in support of the motion for a temporary restraining order, essentially.
Yeah, so this additional document says many of the same things as the larger document, so I'm not going to go into detail, but it's basically like they're trying to shut this guy down, like, stop all your eBay, stop all your selling. If you don't come near the facility, basically what that means, right?
Essentially, it's trying to convey that while this action is pending, their actions regarding selling any sort of collectible on their eBay, particularly comic books, should be shut down until they can have time to address the allegations in the complaint.
I mean, this is crazy. I mean, obviously nothing has happened yet. Possibility this guy has not even been served this lawsuit yet. So I mean, this is still hanging out in the wind. The question is this and the CGC scam the same thing? Is this another incident? When Matt Nelson went on and went live with that 9.9 newsstand guy and the other guy, I mean, he basically, I think he said that there was nobody internally involved. So I'm assuming he's talking about that issue and not this issue, because this is obviously somebody internally involved. So this is bad. This is really messy.
Well, what I'm excited about is, they have so many days to respond, so they haven't even been served with this yet, unless they know about, the news. But they probably don't even know about this yet. And then they'll have some time. Hopefully they'll get a lawyer involved and then figure out how they want to address the claims. Because to me, you better respond with heavy hitters, especially if there's admissions already put in place. I mean, they're going to have some sort of evidence in their corner, because to me, they've got strong allegations of fraud. The question is, what are they going to do other than just outright deny them? I mean, what do they have to say about all of this?
You even said the defendants, good luck finding an attorney to defend you.
Well, there is a saying, you can't get blood out of a turnip. And the question goes, how much money do they have, and can they go against a big corporation like CGC? I mean, it'll bleed them dry in attorney's fees. If they're
trying to scam for $26,000, didn't you say something about $2 million?
Yeah, in there's a demand for $2 million of damages. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Because the CGC has to make this right with the people that were scammed. Guys, what do you guys think? This is a huge story. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If any point in time you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like this video, subscribe for more. Take care.